Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Thomas Walker always believed his marriage to Claire was solid, even if routine had dimmed some of the initial spark. He worked hard as a civil engineer, came home every night, paid all the bills without complaint, and prided himself on being a present and reliable husband. To him, marriage was about commitment, about being there through good times and bad, about building something together that could stand the test of time. He didn't expect grand romance every day, but he believed there was respect, partnership, and above all, loyalty. Small gestures, like making her coffee on Sunday mornings or remembering to buy her favorite wine, were how he showed he cared. He wasn't perfect, he knew that. But he was consistent. And to Thomas, consistency meant love. Claire, on the other hand, had always been more outgoing. She was the kind of woman who drew attention wherever she went. She spoke loudly, laughed even louder, cracked jokes, and loved being the center of every conversation. Thomas never minded that. In fact, he kind of liked it. He thought she brought lightness into his life, which was naturally more reserved and serious. But over time, he started noticing that her extroverted nature sometimes came with comments that bothered him, little jabs disguised as humor. Jokes about him being too uptight, predictable, or never doing anything spontaneous. He'd laugh along, trying not to take it personally. After all, they were just jokes, right? On Friday night, during dinner with 3 other couples at an Italian restaurant in downtown Columbus, the evening started like any other. They chatted about work, summer plans, and light complaints about daily routines. Thomas was relaxed, sipping wine and watching Claire interact with everyone as she always did. Then, in the middle of a conversation about wedding anniversaries, one of their friends asked Claire how she and Thomas kept their relationship alive after all these years together. Claire laughed, looked at Thomas with a smile he couldn't quite read, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, keep it alive? Look, we're more like roommates, you know. We split the bills, share the house, but the rest," she paused dramatically, raising her wine glass. "The rest is just each of us doing our own thing." The table fell silent for 2 seconds before breaking into nervous laughter. Thomas felt his face flush. He forced a smile, tried to play it off, but inside, something broke. The word roommates echoed in his head like an insult. It wasn't a joke. It was a public declaration of disrespect, a way to belittle him in front of people he considered friends. He didn't say anything at the moment. He just finished his wine in one gulp, stared at his plate, and stayed quiet for the rest of dinner. Claire kept right on being cheerful, laughing, telling stories, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just humiliated her husband in front of everyone. On the drive home, Thomas drove in silence. Claire sat beside him, scrolling through her phone, completely unfazed. He tried to bring it up. "Claire, what you said at dinner, about us being roommates. Was that serious?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "What?" "Oh, Thomas, relax. It was just a joke." Everyone laughed. "I didn't laugh." Claire sighed, as if he were being difficult. "You're too sensitive. It was just kidding around, no need to get all worked up." Thomas gripped the steering wheel tightly, feeling anger rise. But he said nothing more. When they got home, he parked, went straight to the guest room, and lay down. Claire didn't even ask why he wasn't sleeping in their bedroom. She just locked herself in the bathroom, took a long shower, and when she came out, went straight to bed without saying goodnight. Thomas stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the past few months in his head. He started putting the pieces together. Claire was always coming home late, saying she was out with friends or at work happy hours. Her phone was always face down. She got irritated whenever he asked questions. She was always too tired to talk, but never too tired to go out on weekends. In recent months, they barely touched. She'd say she was stressed, that work was overwhelming, that she needed space. And he, believing it was just a phase, gave her the space she asked for. But now, after that public humiliation, Thomas began to realize it might not have been just a phase. It might have been something far worse. Saturday morning, while Claire was still asleep, Thomas got up early and went straight to the office. He opened files, reviewed documents, checked contracts. Everything was in his name: the house, both cars, the main bank accounts. Claire had never wanted anything in her name. She always said she preferred to keep things light, that she hated bureaucracy, that she trusted him to handle it all. At the time, Thomas saw that as a sign of trust. Now, he realized it was a strategy. She never truly wanted to commit. She never wanted to be tied down. She'd always kept an exit door open. Thomas picked up the phone and called a friend who worked as a private investigator. He explained the situation, asked for absolute discretion, and hired him for a full investigation into Claire's activities. He wanted to know where she really was when she claimed to be out with friends, who she was texting, whether his suspicions were real or just paranoia. The investigator, professional and direct, said he'd need a week to gather solid information. Thomas agreed. 7 days. Just 7 days to find out if his whole life had been a lie, or if there was still something worth saving. During that week, Thomas kept up his routine as if nothing had changed. He went to work, came home, ate dinner alone most nights because Claire always had commitments. She barely noticed he was acting differently, or if she did, she didn't care. Thomas watched her every move with clinical attention, the way she smiled at messages on her phone, the extra care she took getting ready on certain days, the way she avoided any kind of intimacy with him. Every detail confirmed his suspicions, but he needed proof. He needed something concrete before he acted. On Wednesday, Claire said she was going out with friends after work. Thomas just nodded. On Thursday, she said she had a meeting running late. Thomas made his own dinner and ate alone, as usual. On Friday, exactly 1 week after that humiliating dinner, Claire said she'd spend Saturday at the gym and then have lunch with a coworker. Thomas simply said, "All right. Enjoy yourself." Saturday morning, as Claire got ready to leave, Thomas's phone rang. It was the investigator. "I've got everything here. Let me know when you can come by the office to pick up the report." Thomas's heart raced. He waited until Claire left, watched her car disappear around the corner, and without wasting a second, grabbed his keys and headed out. The investigator's office was 20 minutes from home. Thomas walked in, shook the man's hand, and sat down across from him. The investigator placed a thick envelope on the desk and began to explain. "Thomas, I'm really sorry for what you're about to see. But you asked for the truth, and that's what I've got for you." Thomas opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of printed photos, time logs, screenshots of messages, and a detailed report. The photos showed Claire entering and leaving a motel near Polaris Parkway, always with the same man, Scott Hamilton, the personal trainer at the gym where she claimed to take spinning classes. There were pictures of them having lunch at restaurants, kissing in parking lots, him getting into her car. The messages, obtained through authorized tracking of the phone plan registered under Thomas's name, were explicit. Claire called Scott "love," said she couldn't wait to see him, and complained that Thomas was boring and predictable. In one message, she wrote, "Sometimes I forget he even exists. It's like living with a ghost who pays the bills." Thomas read every word, looked at every photo, absorbed every detail. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel sadness. He felt a cold, sharp clarity, as if everything finally made sense. He thanked the investigator, paid the agreed amount, took the envelope, and left. On the drive home, Thomas started planning. He wouldn't yell, make a scene, or beg. He'd act deliberately, rationally, and decisively. Claire had reduced him to a roommate in front of their friends. Now, he would treat her exactly as she treated him, as someone with no emotional ties, no commitments, no rights. He got home before Claire returned. He went up to their bedroom and started emptying her closet. Clothes, shoes, handbags, makeup, jewelry, everything was carefully packed into suitcases and boxes. Every item he touched was a memory of something he believed was real, but now knew never was. When he finished, he carried the bags down to the garage and arranged them in neat rows. He went back inside, printed some of the most revealing photos, and laid them out on the living room table along with a copy of the investigator's report. On top of it all, he left a handwritten note, firm and unwavering. Roommates split expenses. Tenants pay rent or move out. You have until Monday at noon to collect your things. From now on, all communication will go through my lawyer. Thomas then called a locksmith. Within an hour, all the locks on the house had been changed. He slipped the new keys into his pocket and waited. Claire arrived around 3 in the afternoon, smiling, carrying a gym bag. She put her key in the lock and turned it. Nothing. She tried again. Still nothing. Frowning in confusion, she rang the doorbell. Thomas opened the door but didn't step aside to let her in. He stood there, blocking the entrance, looking her straight in the eyes. What's going on? The key isn't working, Claire said, still not understanding. Thomas crossed his arms. I changed the locks. Claire gave a nervous laugh. What? Why? Your things are in the garage. You have until Monday to pick them up. Her smile vanished. Thomas, what kind of joke is this? It's no joke, Claire. Go inside and see for yourself. He stepped aside, letting her pass. Claire walked in, confused, and headed to the living room. When she saw the photos spread across the table, she froze. All the color drained from her face. She picked up one photo, looked at it, dropped it, grabbed another. Her hands trembled. Thomas. I can explain. Explain what? His voice stayed calm, controlled. That you've been sleeping with your personal trainer for months? That you call me a bill-paying ghost? That I'm so irrelevant in your life you reduced me to a roommate in front of our friends? Claire started crying. It was a mistake. I was confused, You were confused? Thomas let out a humorless laugh. You were so confused you found time to meet at a motel 3 times a week? That you sent messages saying you barely remember I exist? She tried to move closer, but he stepped back. Thomas, please. We can talk. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. You treated me like a roommate. So now you're a tenant. And tenants who don't pay rent get evicted. Claire sank to her knees, sobbing. I love you. I messed up, but I love you. Thomas looked at her, feeling a mix of pity and contempt. If that's love, Claire, then I'd rather live alone. Just then, the doorbell rang. Thomas went to answer it. Outside stood Claire's parents, whom she'd frantically called while Thomas was speaking. Her mother, clearly anxious, walked right in without asking. What's going on here? My daughter called me in tears saying you kicked her out. Thomas calmly pointed to the table. You'd better look before jumping to conclusions. Claire's mother walked over, picked up the photos, and flipped through them. Her father stood silently, watching. When she finished, she dropped the photos in disgust and turned to her daughter. Is this true? Claire didn't answer. She just kept crying. Her father, a man of few words, looked at Thomas and said, You're well within your rights. I'm sorry for what my daughter did. Claire's mother tried to argue, but her father cut her off. There's nothing to defend. She cheated. She humiliated him. Now she reaps what she sowed. Thomas turned to Claire. You have until Monday. After that, whatever's left goes to charity. He grabbed his car keys and walked out, leaving Claire, her parents, and the weight of her choices behind. Thomas spent the weekend at a hotel. Monday morning, he returned home and found the garage empty. Claire had taken everything. He walked through the silent rooms and, for the first time in months, felt like he could breathe. In the days that followed, the story spread. Mutual friends took sides, and most stood with Thomas. When Thomas confronted Scott in a recorded phone call, Scott panicked and immediately disappeared from Claire's life. She tried to reconcile with Thomas through texts, emails, even showed up at his door a few times. But he held firm. He hired a lawyer, filed for divorce, and moved on. Claire, with nowhere to live and no money of her own, had to move back in with her parents. She lost the respect of her friends, the social status she'd worked so hard to build, and everything else. Scott vanished completely. The social circle she'd valued so much turned its back on her. And Thomas, the man she'd dismissed as a roommate, was rebuilding his life with dignity. 3 months later, Thomas sold the house. He didn't want to live there anymore, surrounded by memories of a woman who never valued him. He bought a modern downtown apartment, redecorated everything from scratch, and started a new chapter. He went out with friends, returned to places he enjoyed, and reconnected with old hobbies. He felt alive again. One afternoon, while having coffee at a bakery near work, he saw Claire across the street. She looked different, thinner, her hair dull, wearing simple clothes. She saw him too, hesitated, but finally crossed the street and stopped in front of him. "Hi, Thomas." He just nodded. "Claire." She swallowed hard. "Are you doing okay?" "I am. Better than ever." She looked down. "I'm sorry. For everything." Thomas took a deep breath. "I was sorry too. But now I don't feel anything at all." Claire tried to say more, but he stood up, paid his bill, and walked away. He didn't look back. There was nothing left for him there. The lesson was clear: words carry weight. Calling someone a roommate might seem like a harmless joke, but to the person listening, it can be the final drop revealing an entire betrayal. Claire learned, too late, that respect isn't negotiable. And Thomas learned that sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to walk away. In the end, she lost a husband who loved her. And he got his dignity back. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.